And I think we're live on Skills Not Pills movement on this beautiful, sunny, hot Tuesday, the 29th of May here in Austin, Texas. It is a hot one out there.
Yes.
It's a hot, right? Stacey Lemire Martin is with us. Welcome, Stacey.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I was just getting back from a walk, one of the healthy habits, out in nature, outside. And it is hot outside, though. It is
Yeah,
not my favorite time of year in Austin.
summer has definitely begun.
My
I think we're good.
ex-husband used to say you can take the girl out of New England, but you can't take the New England out of the girl.
This is true. You can tell by my accent.
Oh my God. So now, Stacey, you have been such a great supporter of this movement all the way along since the beginning, even before I launched it. I told you about it. You said, I want to help you with this. Because you've got a real background in this. And I know that your interview that you did with us, it aired earlier in the month. It's going to air again for free June 1st and 2nd. And you have had quite an interesting journey. So we're not going to duplicate, the content of that broadcast. But tell the audience a little bit about like your journey, because it's an amazing story, actually.
We'll just be brief.
Yeah.
So I grew up in a pharmaceutical family. My dad and my mother's two brothers and my dad's uncle, all pharmacists. So, we took a pill for everything. That's what you did. And one day in my early 30s, I realized that I was a mess. I was slowly dying by pharmaceutical drugs and by my own mental attitude. So I went on that journey to get off the drugs. And it's interesting because I've been cleaning out memorabilia and things and paring down. And just yesterday, I found a whole packet of index cards that I used during that healing process of affirmations and goals that I was working on during that time. It was so cool. Real trip down memory lane. So to make a long story short, it took me 3 years of some very serious personal development to start taking myself off of those drugs. I mean, by then, not only was I taking drugs for bipolar disorder, I had really messed up my body bad with those drugs. And now I had like liver disease, gallbladder disease, and thyroid disease. Oh my goodness, I had one diagnosis after another. And so I was able to work on myself, my personal development, my mind and my body, take off 80 pounds, change my attitude completely, change my relationships. And voila, 3 years into the process, I had that internal message that said, time to get off those drugs. So that was back in 1999. And I've been on this journey to help people ever since. And thank you for picking up the mantle and making it worldwide.
I know it is.
Appreciate you.
It is actually worldwide. I actually have a client now in Australia, so that's kind of, it's like, woohoo! I'm like global.
That's right.
And here's the thing: is like, I'm glad you said that stuff about bipolar, because, I have some theories about what that really is, and I'd like to share them and then get your feedback on it. But my feeling about like bipolar or manic depressive, that both of those things just indicate somebody who's got a huge capacity, like a huge energetic capacity to channel emotion and experience, and maybe doesn't know how to regulate or modulate or manage that flow yet, like hasn't learned how to kind of channel that energy in a productive way. And that it's really more skills based. It's not so much about like there's some kind of inherent flaw with you. It's like, no, when okay, like let's just say the average person, I don't want to get snooty here because I'm not going to be, this might sound a little snooty and I apologize, but let's say the average person can handle like a little garden hose on half volume of energy. then okay, that's not too bad, right? Like you can kind of manage like how to direct that energy. You can put your thumb in it. You can, you can spray it a little harder over here if you want. Like you can, it's a little easier to figure out how to direct that. When you've been gifted like a fire hose level of capacity, then you're supposed to figure out how to, like, it's just supposed to be easy to manage that like everybody else. No, it's not. Actually, it's a lesson. You got to build internal resiliency to manage a fire hose or capacity of energy. Like, I think that's what this is really about. And the thing is like people like that have that capacity, when you figure out how the internal architecture, when you build the internal architecture to harness that energy that you're capable of harnessing, like you can get like the work done of 10 people. Like, it's like, right, Stacey? I mean, and people are like, how do you get all that done? And you're like, I have a bigger capacity. I was just born this way. I don't know. I mean,
yeah.
I'm not trying to be like an energy snob. I'm just trying to say, like, there are people built different ways. And I think that the problem with Western culture is it doesn't recognize that there are actually different human design types.
Yes.
There are different human design types with different strengths and weaknesses. And when you try to put everybody in a one size fits all, then you can start saying, oh, this person's broken because they don't fit the mold of like what we think is normal.
So I'd like to comment on all that,
yes,
because
please.
You are so awesome and amazing.
So are you.
Have a way of putting things so simply that anyone can understand it and hit it on the head all at the same time. I will say in my case that a lot of my behavior was learned. I had a father who raged, who had no control, and I learned a lot of those behaviors. And I think that's true for a lot of us, is that we may not get a diagnosis, but we have learned behaviors that look like a lot of diagnoses. I will say about that creative part and that, so I'm one of those people, right?
You have a lot of energy.
I have a lot of energy. When I am balanced and whole, I'm like on fire, out of control, People have to shush me all the time because I get loud. I get excited. I used to see this thing that I have, this capacity to be opposites, right? Really high or really low, which is what defines bipolar behavior. I have this life full of opposites. I can be super quiet, I can be habitual, or I can be like, go with the flow, hippy tippy. It's all the same to me, right? It just depends on where I am and what I'm doing. And I used to see it as a detriment. I didn't see it as the blessing that it really is. And so I used to beat myself up a lot. I used to have a lot of balls rolling in the air all at the same time. It's like, if I could just focus on one. If I could just bring one into fruition, but I love them all. I want them all, and so I would do them all.
But see, all the judgments, where do they come from, Stacey?
Yeah, it's because I didn't know. I didn't know they were gifts. I didn't understand that it was my birthright and it was something I just needed to learn how to use appropriately.
Because you were told, like, what? You were told that there's one size fits all.
Yes.
We're all domesticated that way.
Yes.
This is the system. This is, and you're like the old analogy, you're the square peg trying to fit into the round hole. Like,
right?
You just can't fit in there. It doesn't work.
I am different and it's okay.
It's okay. It's actually a blessing, when you step into your uniqueness, but everyone's all trying to be the same.
It's true. It's true.
You know why they're trying to be the same though?
Well, it's a lower brain safety mechanism.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's being afraid, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So what happened? What internal decisions did you make to finally let yourself be different? To be who you are.
To be who I am? My deceased husband, God rest his soul, he used to say to me, your opinion of me is not my business. And so I adopted that.
That's actually one of your inspirational memes for the
Yeah,
summit.
I got that from him. I don't know where he got it from, but I stole it. And it's very true because we're all so different. And your opinions are based on your domestication and your background and your experiences. And they're not wrong, they're perfect for you. But you're not me. And I have a different thing going on in my head and a different understanding about life, perhaps. Not so much, I think, with you, but you know what I mean.
Well, no, because I understand what you're saying. Like I understand the thing about loving this and loving this and loving this and loving this and loving this, and then trying to figure out how to put energy in all of it at once, you know, and how to keep them all going, you know. I understand that. I also understand about like the big highs and the big lows, and you know, another way of looking at that is like if everybody's domesticated to flatline and be like this is normal, and if you're deviating more than 10 degrees from this midline, then there's something wrong with you. You know, what about just experiencing life? I mean, what about orgasm? I mean, what about chocolate cake? What about soap operas? I'm just saying, like, there is like the human experience, and if you're just flatlining, aren't you sort of depriving yourself of like, yay? You know, I mean,
Exactly.
at the same time as I say that, I did it also, and I think you also had to learn this too. You had to learn how to modulate it so that you don't go. So talk a little bit about that.
Well, and that's what I have to thank pharmaceuticals for. Because when I was first diagnosed, he did not want to give me a bipolar diagnosis. He felt like it was more depression because I seemed to hang there. And so he gave me some SSI uptake, you know, Prozac. And he said, you know, it'd make me worse if I had bipolar, it'd make me better, you know, if I was just depressed. Well, I didn't know what worse meant.
You found out?
I found out. But what I found out especially was that, you know, so there's here, which we'll call normal, right? And then there's really high, and then there's low and really low, high and really high. And so what Prozac did for me was it helped me find out that there was someplace other than this or this, right? It showed me that I could go here or here or here or way down there. So it really showed me that there was a chemical thing that it could help or hurt, and that there was something else available to me besides just being dragging my butt all the time and forcing myself to take care of my kids, to shower, to feed myself. It was a challenge. So I'm thankful for prescription drugs in that regard because I really learned that. And from there, I really had to learn how to modulate that. And I did really well for a couple of years until I couldn't handle it anymore. And then I went for the strong drugs. I went for the lithium. And that's when everything changed. That's when I really started deteriorating my health. It was a bad scene. I don't recommend that drug to anybody. And I was on it for a long time, and it caused a lot of health problems, new diseases, new problems. So I'm grateful to be done with them. And I'm grateful they're available for people that really need them, you know?
I want to circle back to something you said, because about how the original drug helped, was it Prozac, helped you to realize that you could be modulating in all these different ways. And is that because you realized, is that because of the emotional distance that it created inside of you? Like you could be almost separate from the experience somehow? Because my experience is like I was behind a glass wall. Like I could detach from my life, from the stimulus with that drug, those drugs I was on. I could like detach from the experience.
It took me a while to learn that. So while I was on those drugs for 3 years, I really worked on my mental attitude. But more important than that, Carrie, I had to work on my physical brain. You know, the mind and the brain are not the same thing. They correlate, but they're not the same thing. And so in order to have sustainable change, we really have to work on our brain physiology and open up that prefrontal cortex so that we get a different perspective, so that we can see things with a broader view and an open heart. And it took me a while to learn that because I was all on my own. I didn't have books, doctors, friends that were really smart about this. Nobody had done what I was doing, not to my knowledge, right?
Well, and there's kind of like Michelle Norris, one of her quotes was, there's not something around, there's nothing like the blessing of finding a new normal, you know, and I think that you were in the search of the new normal. It's like, I'm on a normal, it's depressed. And is there another normal I can find that's better?
Yes, absolutely. And I learned how to create affirmations that I believed. People talk
That
about
you
how
believe, yes.
affirmations don't work. Well, if you're trying to talk yourself into something that you don't truly believe, of course they don't work. You can't just use your mind to heal your mind. It just doesn't work that way. Now, it's a way to get there, like meditation. We usually meditate on an object or, get to that place of no thought, but we're using our mind to heal our mind. You've got to actually change your brain physiology. And that can take time if you're doing just meditation. That can take more time. We've got.
But you sought other interventions.
Yes, I did. Oh my goodness. Wow.
Just give us a sample of the interventions that you sought in healing your mind and healing, because I also had to heal my brain, the physical
Yes.
brain, had to heal the brain to make new neurological pathways, right?
Yes.
So that I could
Right.
have a different new normal, a new experience. So I think that's the same for you. So what are some of the modalities just to give an idea for people, what does it
Okay,
take?
well, I studied with a shaman for several years. I went out to the medicine wheel in Colorado. I studied and got certified at mastery level in Reiki. I did something called coning. Maybe you've heard
What
of
is
ear
toning?
coning.
Uh-huh.
When people would stick a wax cone in your ear for healing. Well, we had a modality where you used colored cones along the body to pull out stuck energy. I did NET, and I would swallow 60 pills called brain, if that's what my body called for that day.
Wow. Did you do flower essences?
I did flower
Me too.
essences.
Yeah.
I learned how to muscle test, and I learned how to take my kids to Whole Foods and use their arm to muscle test.
Is it like, should I buy this food, or is this just my ego that wants this?
Exactly. And I used them because they didn't know the questions I was asking and they couldn't influence the answers,
Oh,
right?
so smart, mama.
Oh, yeah. I indoctrinated my kids early because the truth is that they were starting certain behaviors based on the culture they were growing up in around me. So the beautiful news is that as I healed, so did my children. And my son is almost 30 today, and he talks about how he watched me change my life, and that became his example. That's a beautiful thing.
Tell me a little bit more about that, because I know that's also part of my journey, is trying to heal myself while raising children.
That it's a struggle. I mean,
Yeah.
my kids were afraid of me.
Yes.
I yelled a lot, and when I got angry, it was not a pretty sight at all. And so they were kind of damaged by my outbursts of anger. That's just depression turned inward, right? Or depression is anger turned inward. And so it would come out violently. If the kids made noise, because that's what kids do, I'd be yelling at them. I couldn't stand the noise. It hurt my brain. So as I became more whole and healed and calm, I would explain things to the kids. I mean, I would be really honest with them. I'd yell at them, and then I'd come back and say, you know what? I really don't want to yell at you anymore. Let's work on this together. What behavior you can have that doesn't trigger me? And then what do you think I can do that can help you do that task? Or I'm like, I started having adult conversations with them and they were on board with that. They wanted to help me. They wanted to love me. They wanted to like me. It's hard when you have parents that you just don't like. I didn't want that for them. I wanted us to have a great relationship. And we did, I say did. I do with my son who's still alive, and I did with my daughter who died. But yeah, I mean, it made such a huge difference in our family when I became well.
Well, I know that a big part of the journey for me right now is, I kind of feel like I went through this uphill climb, like with almost like I was carting like the whole world behind me, like, and just slugging my way up the mountain, like with every turn, just like bam, bam, I'm gonna heal. It's gonna be better. I'm gonna get this. This is gonna happen. And then I'm gonna go out in the world and I'm gonna tell people that, it's like, and I finally got to this top of this I wouldn't say I'm at the top of my journey, right? Because I'm only 48 now, but I got to this plateau at this moment, and I'm standing here and I had a moment of like, okay, let's like look around and see what happens. And because I'm at a different place, like my family has been able to regroup, and like they're getting to purge all of their reaction to the person that I was before I started this journey, and the person that I was a long part of this journey where I was still healing. And like they're getting a chance to like come back and say, oh, this really hurt my feelings, or I didn't feel loved, or this part really hurt me, or whatever it is, that they have. It's like they're, and then I was feeling like, inside me, I was like, well, damn, I just like, I just did all this like spiritual P90X for like 8 years. And now you're going to turn around and tell me like, you're going to dump more crap on me. And I was kind of in that moment of like, but then I realized, wait a second, Carrie, the only reason people do that is because they feel safe enough to finally share it. Like they feel safe enough to finally say, this is the effect that your journey had in my life. And then I can receive that, and I can just love them and have compassion for, wow, okay, now I see the 360. Like I was only seeing like this. I was just trying to keep the ship moving, right? Like
Right.
I try to keep the train on the tracks, all this stuff's going on in here, and I'm just falling apart, and my marriage is falling apart, 10 years ago, and all this stuff. And I'm just trying to keep the train on the track. I know you can relate to that.
That's all you can focus on at that moment, right?
Yeah.
And it's just like my three ways to empower yourself for change and to change your life is that love yourself where you're at, right? You can't take their journey personally. Oh, sure, you were part of it, and part of the feelings that they have is because of you and your behavior, yes, but they chose to accept it. They chose to feel how they felt about it, and you were doing the best you could in that moment. And I hear you. Sometimes just getting those kids changed into fresh clothes and fed was like monumental, right? It was like you were handicapped almost and only working with half of the capacity that you need to work with. So yeah, I'm so glad that you didn't take that on and take it personally, even though it felt personal.
Because that's a big part of mental health as well, Stacey, is like anybody that's out there in the audience. And the reason I share these stories is it's not just to get attention, but it's because I want to let you know that like I get it. I understand it. That when you're going through a diagnosis, or you're going through something that you've maybe got some personal shame around, right? You can sort of become like, there can be all kinds of messed up family dynamics that take advantage of that diagnosis in order to absolve people of their personal responsibility. And there can be all kinds of side effects of whatever you're going through in your healing journey that affect people in your family that, that you may not be able to hear at this point in time, but over here, when you're better, you can hear it. So not, so just to get a perspective on the journey that we go through when we're overcoming diagnoses and pills and judgments and labels and trying to navigate that inner journey while raising a family. It's a lot on a person, and don't lose hope. Yeah. What words do you have for somebody that's going through that right now, Stacey?
You've got to have a support network.
Yeah.
You've got to have somebody. Now, I don't mean the girlfriend that you call it, because this is what I did at first.
You're outing yourself.
I don't mean the girlfriend you call up and you whine and you bitch and you moan and you blame and you make it all about everything outside of you. I mean the kind of friend that when you call and you say, I'm feeling this and this and this, and your friend lifts you up. They don't let you stay in your story. If they're letting you stay in your story and go on and on and on, they A, don't have skills, or B, they're not really your friend. because a true friend wants you to be healthy. A true friend doesn't want you to live in your story. A true friend wants you to make your day and make your joy, right? So you've got to have a support network that gets you out of your story, lets you say it at first, because sometimes it has to come out before you can acknowledge and heal, right? I'm not saying never tell your story, never complain. I'm just saying pay attention to the words that you're using in the story that you're telling, and don't tell everybody that will listen, right?
That's another mistake people make, right?
Yes, we tell
Especially with
everybody.
the bipolar one and the borderline one, I think, because they're so like internally mentally painful that like it's like you can't help but tell everybody. It's like it's what I did that too. Yeah.
Yeah. So live and learn, right?
Yeah, live and learn. Well, my teacher Heather Ashamara. Here's a couple comments I have. My teacher Heather Ashamara said to me, to the whole class, but I really took it in. She said, be mindful of the friend that you're calling and why you're calling them. If you know that you want a pity party, be mindful that you're calling the friend that's going to let you do the pity party. That's all.
Right.
Just be mindful. That's why you're calling that friend. And if you're ready to move beyond that, then be mindful of calling the friend that's going to give you the good, swift kick in the ass,
Good
or
advice.
that's going to lift you up.
Right.
So just be mindful of what friend you're calling for what reason. It's okay. Don't have judgment around it. Like, just let it be what it is. But just know that that's what you're doing. Have the awareness that that's what you're doing. It'll help shift you out of it.
And then, too, have the awareness of who's calling you.
Yes, and why they're calling you.
Because it's so easy to get sucked into people's stories and to resonate with that story, and then to create an accident that you don't need to have in your life.
Like your hand.
But look, I can make a fist
She
now.
can move it. If you guys saw her on her interview, she had a cast. And it's only like a month later and the cast is off. You're doing great. So
yeah, I am. I'm doing fabulous.
Yeah. Well, and that was a lesson around empathy, and we talked about that in your video,
Yes.
around how you got to be managing your empathy with caution. If you're,
Yes.
if you've kind of gotten one of these diagnoses, like, related to boundaries, or like up down, that's probably there's some boundary issues there, and that's empathy. So
Yes. And
yeah.
let me tell you, that was one thing that I really had to learn in those early years before I got off the medication, was how to have boundaries, because I had none.
Yeah, I had none. So, okay, I know we're getting close to the top of the hour, but I want to explore a couple more things. Do you have time?
Yes, I do.
So, okay, so I wanted to also talk about criticism.
Mm.
Highly sensitive people, of which you and I are both. How have you learned how to deal? Because criticism, if we internalize that can lead to dis-ease as well, and that can lead to that depression. So what lessons did you learn around criticism and handling that?
So, well, the first thing I'd like to say is, unfortunately, I was one of the biggest critics that ever lived when I was sick. I'm sad to say it. And that's something I'm constantly overcoming. It seems like I'm much better at it, because I like things the way I like them. They make my brain happy. They make my day flow, things like that. So, I'm learning to let go of that tightness and, not to be so critical. That's a challenge for me. I just admit that right off the bat. The other thing is that I was my worst critic. And so what I had to remind myself is, when I heard myself criticizing or making judgments or having a limiting belief, I'd have to say, okay, would I tell that to my best friend? Would I say that to my best friend? Would I say that to my child? And so once you're mindful and you catch that negativity and you catch that judgment, just turn around and ask yourself that question. Would I say that to someone I loved and cared about? And if the answer is no, then I had to apologize to myself and turn it around.
That's beautiful. I love that. What I found a biggest piece of it was, for me, because I played the victim a lot. I'll admit that.
Mm-hmm.
I played the victim because I had a very strong mother figure. She's very strong. She doesn't think she is. It's so funny. Like, my dad always says we're exactly the same. He's probably right, because he was the only one that was objective. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. And I'll tell you what it is like you think you don't know how strong, like I'm not aware of how strong I am. Like I'm getting more aware of it, but a lot of my life, like I didn't really see that. Like I just thought I was like this, I was trying to be sweet, I wanted to be sweet. So, and I wanted everybody to like me. So I played the victim a lot. If somebody criticized me, it would like hurt me deeply, because it would touch on all the things I already did believe about myself, right?
Right.
But I was hiding and submerging. I didn't want to look at. So one of the biggest gifts that I got from my first real, I mean, I had many teachers, but Heather Ashimara was a big teacher for me. I keep bringing her up because she really taught me a lot. And the first thing that she did for me that was pivotal was that she didn't argue with my story. She just witnessed me. I came in that first day of class. I had been in a particularly low point. It was my first day of a 9-month class with her. And the night before I had been suicidal. And so I came into the class and I told her the whole story. I was going to kill myself last night, but then I couldn't figure out how to do it because I'm lame and I didn't have any drugs in the house to do it. So that would be the wimpy way out and I couldn't do that. And I'd have to do something else and I wasn't strong enough to do that. And so here I am. And she just witnessed it, just like didn't say anything, just held me in compassion, held me in love, like eye contact. And then the only thing she said was, yeah. And that was the first time anybody acknowledged me and said, yeah, you really feel that way. Not like, yeah, your story's true, but yeah, you really feel that way. I feel that you feel that. I think that's a gift that we can give people who are struggling.
I agree. That's really beautiful. It just, I have nothing to say. That was
Makes me want to
beautiful.
cry, doesn't it?
It kind of does.
I mean, I want to cry.
It kind of does.
Still, I can tell that story without crying now, which is pretty much a miracle. But the fact that you can just witness somebody in their truth, like that's their current truth, it's not true. You can look at them and go, that's not true. Look at this shining light in front of me. That's ridiculous. But that's how they really feel right now. And so rather than resist it, rather than turn your back on it, just like, yep, you feel that way.
See, I did that for my sister-in-law who suffered from depression and suicidal attempts for 4 years. I acknowledged her truth was true for her, and so I was the only person that she could talk to. But I was dealing with my own stuff at the same time and didn't have any boundaries and blah, blah, blah. But I know that's true what you're saying, because I kind of did that for her and gave her that safe space. Unfortunately, I didn't have the skills to do anything beyond that, but I'm grateful for that time, because that truth really helps me work with people too.
Yeah. And there's some tough stuff out there. And I think that as light workers, it's really beautiful when you can straddle the worlds. You can hold the truth of the light. You can hold the truth of the beauty that you now know is true. And you can keep your foot in the mud. Like you're not trying to
like the lotus.
Ick, get it off me. But you can just be like, yes, this is part of it too.
Absolutely. I love you, Carrie
I
Hummingbird.
love you too. Thank you for sticking with me on this whole month of, oh my Lord, we've got one more day tomorrow. Today was Nina Sangwan went on. We've got our last interview tomorrow.
And then there's you.
And then there's me on the 31st. I'm going to teach on the 31st. I'm going to do a little special video for the audience. And, and this is going to go on. People want to do an affiliate program with it because it's, the free replay. That's right. The free replay is June 1st and 2nd, all day long. All the interviews, you can watch them all back for free. And then if you decide, that you want to, I don't know, support the mission.
Please support the mission.
If you want to support the mission, because it's going to continue.
I did.
Yeah, you did.
I'm like, I have to have all these videos, because if I can't keep up with it, I've got to be able to go back there and watch it again.
And there's a cool little website. You can access them. There, all the offers and everything is in there on the little website you get to access. And so that's $47. So if you want to purchase it, you can purchase it. And that would help me keep doing this work.
That is the
And
smallest investment I have
it's
ever paid for such valuable information.
a lot of good stuff. You can go back and watch it again.
Some of the doctors you had on there,
I know. They're
so
amazing.
grateful for them.
Kevin Ballister with his story. Oh my goodness.
I'm
A lot of
following him
inspiration.
now.
I know,
Yeah.
me too. Well, I see him all the time. But good stuff, really good stuff. So thank you for being a part of it. I'm really glad that you were my sister in this, and we'll continue forward because it's not ending here. There's going to be more to come. So
Thank you. Thank you for honoring me to be part of this whole movement. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you too, Stacey. Good work in the world. Mwah. Okay, guys. Well, I hope you got some good inspiration from this, and that you know that if you're challenging, you're struggled, and you're going through some of these difficult things, and you need somebody like Stacey on your team, well, you can look her up. And you have something coming up, right? You have something in June.
I do.
Okay.
I haven't set the date yet, but I'm going to do a free 5-day challenge, and I'm calling it From Affirmations and Resolutions to Resolutions.
Resolutions.
Yes. We're going to learn how to make affirmations or goals into something that you can really use and that really works.
Works
And it's going
because
to be
it's
all free.
within your belief system. Like it's close enough that you can believe it, right?
Yeah, I'm going to teach you how to do that.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Yeah, perfect. Because otherwise, if you pick affirmations that are sort of too far out there, they can actually be detrimental. They don't work.
It's
They
true.
can set you back.
And you
So
have to use the energy that you believe in. I
yeah,
can, I will, or I am. They're not all the same. It's
yeah.
different energy.
Good. So you're going to teach all that.
Yeah, I'm
Beautiful.
excited.
Yay. Okay. Well, that sounds like a great opportunity to work more with Stacey. So that'll be coming up. As soon as I have the details on that, I will post that to Skills Not Pills Movement.
Thank you.
And yes, absolutely. And don't forget, you can watch back Stacey's interview for free June 1st to 2nd when you subscribe at www.skillsnotpillsmovement.com. Skillsnotpillsmovement.com. You can sign up and you can watch it back. Yay. Thank you so much,
Yay.
everybody. Bye,
Bye.
Stacey.
Have a great day.
You too.